Good afternoon and thank you. On behalf of my co-investigators, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for the opportunity to present the EMBRACE data as an encore at this conference. These are my disclosures. So, long-acting regimen has been identified as a critical tool to optimize therapy for people with HIV and ultimately lead to the end of the HIV cure, end of the HIV epidemic. VH3810109, also called N6LS, is a broadly neutralizing CD4 binding site antibody which is in development for long-acting HIV-1 therapy. This class of medication is quite important, not only because it can suppress virus, but also because it has potential benefits in terms of prevention and cure initiatives. Of the currently available broadly neutralizing antibodies in phase 2 development, N6LS is quite unique because it has quite a broad range of cover. Prior to the EMBRACE study, there have been 2 studies which assessed N6LS, and the first is the SPAN study, in which a dose of 60 milligrams per kilogram intravenously and 3,000 milligrams subcutaneously were assessed and found to be safe in volunteers without HIV. The medication was administered subcutaneously with recombinant human hyaluronidase, which, as you've heard, is capable of enlarging the subcutaneous space to have more volume and dose administered. The second study was the Banner study, which was a proof of concept phase 2A study, and it assessed tolerability and safety in antiretroviral therapy naive participants and found those to be quite adequate. So using the doses from SPAN, the EMBRACE study evaluated efficacy, safety and tolerability of N6LS every 4 months plus long-acting cabotegravir monthly for maintenance of HIV suppression. In terms of the study, it is a randomized open-label, multi-center phase 2B study that recruited from the US and Puerto Rico. For inclusion criteria, these included, firstly, virological suppression prior to enrollment for at least 12 months, not having switched antiretroviral therapy prior to enrollment, having a CD4 cell count of greater than 350 cells, and then also having a phenotypic sensitivity to N6LS defined as an IC90 less than equal to 2 micrograms per mole, and an MPI of greater than 98%. Participants were randomized 2 to 2 to 1 to receive N6LS 4 monthly plus cabotegravir monthly intravenously, or N6LS subcutaneously plus RHU PH20 and cabotegravir monthly, or remain on standard of care. The primary endpoint was having at least an HIV-1 RNA of 50 copies per mole at 6 months by FDA snapshot algorithm, and participants are being followed for 24 months. So this is the baseline characteristics of the participants and demographics, and if I draw your attention to the far right column, you'll see the median age there was 53 years. Majority of participants were male. Race and ethnicity were well distributed within the population sample. The median BMI was 28, median CD4 count 647, and in terms of phenotypic sensitivity for N6LS, the median was 0.83 micrograms per mole, with 62% of participants having an IC90 of less than equal to 1 microgram per mole. This is the primary endpoint results, and looking at the first set of bars, you'll see that there were 2 participants within the intravenous arm that had a snapshot failure, 3 within the subcutaneous arm, and none within the standard of care arm. The second set of bars show the maintenance of virological suppression at 6 months, and intravenous administration had a high virological suppression rate, and I'll draw your attention to the 88% for subcutaneous And just to mention that in this arm, there were 3 participants that had no virological data at the snapshot time point, and this is because of discontinuation, but they were suppressed at the time of discontinuation. Regarding virological failure, we assessed this throughout the 6-month period and defined confirmed virological failure as having 2 consecutive HIV-1 RNA measurements of greater than or equal to 200 copies per mole. Of the 5 participants that had snapshot failures, there were 2 in each arm that had confirmed virological failure. All participants with confirmed virological failure resuppressed on standard of care ART. So I'll now go into a little bit more detail of the 4 cases of confirmed virological failure, and looking first at the IV arm. The 2 graphs here represent the change of HIV-1 RNA for the participants over time. You'll see that the first participant had emergence of virological failure at month 3, and the second at around month 6. For both of these participants, they did have reduced sensitivity to N6LS. The first one quite significantly with an IC90 greater than 50 micrograms per mole, and the second a more modest reduction with 3 micrograms per mole. Neither of these participants developed any integrase strand transfer inhibitor resistance associated mutations. Then looking at the subcutaneous arm, so here we see the first participant around month 3 had emergence of virological failure, and the second at about month 1 plus 2 weeks. For these participants, they retained virological sensitivity, phenotypic sensitivity to N6LS, but one of them had a resistance mutation which occurred, namely Q148R, which is found at confirmed virological failure time point. This mutation conferred a 2-fold susceptibility change for cabotegravir. And on post-hoc analyses, we found that from baseline samples for this participant that the mutation was present in a minority population at 0.56%. And just also to mention that the participant did remain sensitive to dolutegravir with a 0.5-fold change in sensitivity. Looking at CD4 change over time from baseline, there were no trends in terms of CD4 change for the study. And then moving on to the safety analyses. So looking specifically first at N6LS associated infusion site reactions. I'll draw your attention to the IV arm first. There were 4 infusion site reactions. They were all grade 1. They lasted maximum 3 days, and none of these led to discontinuation. Within the subcutaneous arm, there were numerically more ISR events. They were of a higher grade and tended to last longer, but again, none led to discontinuation. And then overall safety assessment, I think for this, to again bring your attention to the IV arm, specifically looking at N6LS and CAB-related AEs, there were 0 grade 3, grade 4, or any serious adverse events, and none that led to withdrawal. And then in terms of the subcutaneous arm, there were a moderate amount of grade 3 and some serious adverse events, and 3 AEs that led to withdrawal in the subcutaneous arm. So in conclusion, N6LS administered IV or subcutaneously every 4 months in combination with monthly CAB maintained viral suppression in a high proportion of adults with baseline N6LS sensitivity. N6LS resistance was detected in both participants in the confirmed virological failure group, IV group, and an INSTI-RAM was detected in one of the 2 participants with confirmed virological failure in the subcut group. N6LS was well tolerated, specifically the IV arm better than subcutaneous. And I'd also like to draw your attention to a poster that has clinical outcome assessment data, poster number 14 at the conference here today. And based on these results, and specifically the high virological suppression rate of 96% for the IV arm, we are progressing N6LS IV into a Q6 monthly with combined with cabotegravir long-acting for part 2 of the EMBRACE study. I'd like to thank the participants for their involvement, the investigators and site staff, and also ViiV and GSK team members for their contributions. Thank you.